Okay, so cascading style sheets orientation. We've heard style sheet mentioned quite a bit already. Now we'll finally put them to work and start giving our pages some much needed style. Cascading style sheets is a W3 standard for defining presentation of documents written in HTML and, in fact, any XML language. Okay. Presentation again refers to the way the document is displayed or delivered to the user, whether on a computer screen or a cell phone device, printed on paper, or read about by a screen reader. With style sheets handling the presentation, HTML can handle the business of defining document structures and meaning as intended. CSS is a separate language with its own syntax. This chapter covers CSS terminology and fundamental concepts that will help you get your bearings for the upcoming chapters, where you'll learn how to change text and font styles, add colors and background, even do some basic page layout. By the end of part 3, I aim to give you a solid foundation for further reading on your own and lots of practice. Okay. The benefits of CSS. Note that you need further convincing that style sheets are the way to go. But here is a quick rundown of the benefits of using style sheets. Precise type and layout control. You can achieve print-like precision like using CSS. There's even a set of properties aimed specifically at the printed page. Okay. Less work. You can change the appearance of an entire site by adding one style sheet. Yes. More accessible sites. When all matters of presentation are handled by CSS, you can mark up your content meaningfully, making it more accessible for non-visual or mobile devices. Reliable browser support. Every browser in current use supports CSS level 2 and many cool parts of CSS level 3. And CSS. Come to think of it, come to think of it, uh, there really aren't any disadvantages to using style sheets. There are some lingering hassles from browser inconsistencies, but they can either be avoided or worked around if you know where to look for them. The power of CSS. We're not talking about minor visual tweaks here, like changing the color of headlines or adding text indents. When used to its full potential, CSS is a robust and powerful design tool. My eyes were first opened to the possibilities of using CSS for design by the variety and richness of the designs at CSS Zen Garden. In the misty days of yore, when developers were still hesitant to give up their table-based layouts for CSS, David Shear's CSS Zen Garden site demonstrated exactly what could be accomplished using CSS alone. David posted an HTML document and invited designers to contribute their own style sheets that gave the document a visual design. Figure 11.1 shows just a few of my favorites. All of these designs use the exact same HTML source. Nice. Note, not only that, it doesn't include a single image element. All the images are used as background. But look at how different each page looks. Okay. But look at how different each page looks and how sophisticated. It's all done using style sheets. It was proof of the power in keeping CSS separate from HTML and presentation separate from structure. The CSS Zen Garden is no longer being updated and now is considered a historical document of a turning point in the adoption of web standards. Despite its age, I still find it to be a nice one-stop lesson for demonstrating exactly what CSS can do. Granted, it takes a lot of practice to be able to create CSS layouts like those. Killer graphic design, Killer graphic design skills help too. Unfortunately, I'm showing this to you upfront because I want to I want you to be aware of the potential of CSS-based design, particularly because the examples in the beginner's book tend to be simple and straightforward. Take your time learning, but keep your eye on the prize. How style sheets work. Start with the document that has been marked up in HTML. Write style rules for how you'd like certain elements to look. Okay. Then attach the style rules to the document. When the browser displays a document, it follows your rules for entering elements unless the user has applied some mandatory styles. Okay, so there's a bit more to it than that, of course. Let's give each of these steps a little more consideration. Marking up the document. You know a lot about marking up content from the previous chapters. For example, you know that it is important to choose elements that accurately describe the meaning of the content. You know that it is important to choose elements that accurately describe the meaning of the content. You've also heard me say that the markup creates the structure of the document, sometimes called the structural layer, upon which the presentation layer can be applied. Okay. In this and the upcoming chapters, you'll see that having an understanding of a document structure and the relationships between elements is central to your work as a style sheet author. To get a feel for how simple it is to change the look of the document with style, try your hand at exercise 11.1. The good news is that I whipped up a little HTML document for you to play with. Okay, so your first style sheet in this exercise will add a few simple styles to a short article. The document and its associated are available here. Just open the document in a browser. To see how it looks by default, it should look something like this. You can also open the document in a text editor and get ready to follow this exercise. Okay, so I want to go to chapter 11. Let's extract it here. 11. Uh, this is 20s.html and 20s.jpg. Okay, copy this. We create a new chapter. Chapter 11. What is the name of the chapter? How style sheets work. Right. Cascading. Okay. Cascading style sheets orientation. Cascading style sheets orientation. Exercise 11.1. We paste these. Let's run it. This is how it looks by default. Writing the rules. A style sheet is made up of one or more style instructions called rules or rule sets that describe how an element or group of elements should be displayed. Yeah. The first step in learning CSS is to get familiar with the parts of a rule. As you've seen, they're fairly intuitive to follow. Each rule, each rule selects an element and declares how it should look. Okay. The following example contains two rules. The first makes all H1 element in the document green. The second specifies the paragraph should be in a small sans serif font. We have a note: sans serif font do not have a little slab, a serif, at the ends of stroke and tend to look more sleek and modern. In CSS terminology, the two main sections of a rule are the selector that identifies the element or elements to be affected and the declaration that provides the rendering instructions. Okay. So selector and declaration. The declaration in turn is made up of property such as color and its value, green, separated by colon and space. Separated by colon and a space. One or more declarations are placed inside curly braces. Okay. Curly brackets like this. Then we have this is the declaration property value. Then we can have multiple properties and multiple values. Selective. In the previous small style sheet example, the each one and the elements are used as selectors. This is called an element type selector and it's the most basic type of selector. Okay. Element type selector. The properties defined for each rule will apply to H1 and P element in the document respectively. In the upcoming chapters, I'll introduce you to more sophisticated selectors that you can use to target elements, including ways to select groups of elements and elements that appear in a particular context. Mastering selectors, that is, choosing the best type of selector and using it strategically, is an important step in becoming a CSS Jedi Master. Okay. Declaration. The declaration is made up of property value pair. They can be there can be more than one declaration in a single rule. For example, the rule for the P element shown earlier in the code example has both font size and font family properties. Each declaration must end with a semicolon to keep it separate from the following declaration. Providing measurement values. When providing measurement values, the unit must immediately follow the number like this. Adding a space before the unit will cause the property not to work. Oh. It is acceptable to omit the unit of measurement. Let's see, margin. See, which note? Which note I talking about? If you omit the semicolon, the declaration and the following it will be ignored. The curly brackets are and the declarations they contain are often referred to as declare 11.3 declaration block. Because CSS ignores white spaces and line returns within the declaration block, authors typically write each declaration in the block on its own line as shown in the following. Okay. This makes it easier to find the properties applied to the selector and tell you when the style rule ends. Note that nothing has really changed here. There is still one set of curly brackets, semicolons after each declaration, etc. The only difference is the insertion of line returns and some character spaces for alignment. The heart of style sheets lies in the collection of standard properties that can be applied to selected element. The complete CSS specification defines dozens of properties for everything from text indents to how table headers should be read aloud. This book covers the most common and best supported properties that you can begin using right away. Values. Values are dependent on the property. Some properties take length measurement, some take color values, and other have a predefined list of keywords. When using a property, it is important to know which value it accepts. However, in many cases, simple common sense will serve you well. Before we move on, why not get a little practice writing style rules yourself? Okay, so your first style sheet. Open this. Okay. think it's an doc type HTML. Oh shit. I'll go with this, and I don't think I will be needing this, and that's all. HTTP equivalent content type content text HTML get set. I think we used to put meta, then get set equals UTF dash 8. That's all. Top of the type is selected here. Okay, so I have to apply. You will find I have set up a style element for you to type the rule into. The style element is used to embed a style sheet in an HTML document. To begin, we'll simply add a small style sheet that we just looked in at this section. Type the following rules in the document just as you see them. To make this, we'll go with selector each one. With this, we go want colors color to be green and semicolon, right? Then we start with P. We have size small, and font family is sans serif. Save the file and take a look at it in the browser. You should notice some changes. If your browser already uses a sans serif font, you may only see the size change. If not, go back and check that you included both the opening and closing curly brackets and semicolons. It's easy to accidentally omit these characters, causing style sheet not to work. Now we'll change and add to the style sheet to see how easy it is to write rules and see the effects of the changes. Here are a few things to try. Remember that you need to save the document after each change in order for the changes to be visible when you reload the browser. Okay, so we'll run it, and we have color green, and all the paragraphs have changed. Okay, so some few changes here are: make H1 element green and take a look at it in the browser, then make it blue, finally make it red. To complete list of available color names in chapter 30. Add a new rule that makes H2 elements red as well. Okay, here we go. Color is red and H2 color red. Then we have add a 100 pixel left margin to paragraph elements using this declaration. Margin left 100 pixel. Let us try this. Margin left 100 pixel. Then we have, remember that you can add this new declaration to the existing rule for P element. Add a 100 pixel left margin to the issue headings as well. Margin left 100 pixel. Then add a red 1 pixel border to the bottom of H1 element using this declaration. Border dash bottom 1 pixel solid red. So border dash bottom 1 pixel solid red. Then we move the image to the right. Move the image to the right margin and allow text to flow around it with float property. The shorthand margin property shown in this rule adds 0 pixels of space on top and bottom of the image and 12 pixels on left and right. You go image float right and margin 0.12 pixel. Image image float right margin 0.12 pixel. When you're done, the document should look something like this. Let's take a look. Yes, nice. Left margin 100. Was it supposed to be 100 or 20? Add 100 pixel left margin. Margin left. These are not okay. My bad. Hmm. Okay, when you're done, attaching the styles to the document. In the previous exercise, we embedded the style sheets right in the document using the style element. That is one of three ways the style information can be applied to an HTML document. You'll get to try each of these soon, but it is helpful to have an overview of the methods and terminology upfront. External style sheets. An external style sheet is a separate text-only document that contains a number of style rules. It must be named with a .css suffix. The .css document is then linked to or imported into one or more HTML documents. In this way, all files in a website may share the same style sheet. This is the most powerful and preferred method for attaching style sheets to the content. Embedded style sheets. This is the type of style sheet we worked with in the exercise. It is placed in the document using the style element and its rules apply only to the document. The style element must be placed in the head of the document. Okay. It includes comment. Comments and styles. Sometimes it is helpful to leave yourself or your collaborators comments in a style sheet. CSS has its own comment syntax. Okay, comments between will be ignored when the style sheet is passed, which means you can leave comment anywhere in the style sheet, even within the rule. Okay. One use of comment is to label sections of the style sheet to make things easier to find later. Okay, so to start. CSS comments are also useful for temporarily hiding style declarations in the design process. When I'm trying out a number of styles, I can quickly switch styles off and closing, check it in the browser and remove comment characters. It's faster than retyping the entire thing. Okay. In HTML 4.01 and XHTML 1.0, the style element must contain a type attribute that identifies the content of the style. In HTML5, the type attribute is no longer required. The style element may also include the media attribute, which should target specific media such as screen, print, or handheld devices. Here, inline styles. You can apply properties and values to a single element using the style attribute in the element itself. To add multiple properties, just separate them with semicolons like this. Inline styles apply only to the particular element in which they appear. Inline styles should be avoided unless it is absolutely necessary to override styles from an embedded or external style sheet. Inline styles are problematic in that they intersperse presentation information into the structural mark. They also make it more difficult to make changes because every style attribute must be hunted down at the source. Here, exercise 11.2 gives you an opportunity to write an inline style and see how it works. Okay, so I can just go style. Hmm. We won't be working with inline styles after this point for the reasons listed earlier. Here's your chance. Okay, so open the article, whatever state you left it in. If you worked to have the end of the exercise You will have a rule that makes H2 element red. Write an inline style that makes the second H2 gray. Okay, so uh, sorry, not to make the second. This is the first H2. This is the second H2 style equal color gray. H2 gray. Save the file and open it in a browser. Now the second heading is gray, overriding the red color in the set. Right. Save the file and open it in a browser. Now the second heading is gray, overriding the red color set in the encrypted style sheet. The other H2 is unaffected. Okay. Right. The other H2 is unaffected. Okay. The big concept. There are a few big ideas that you need to get your head around to be comfortable with how cascading style sheets behave. I'm going to introduce you to these concepts now so we don't have to slow down for a lecture once we're rolling through the style properties. Each of these ideas will certainly be revisited and illustrated in more detail in the upcoming chapters. Inheritance. Are your eyes the same color as your parents? Did you inherit their hair color, your unique smile? Well, just as parents pass down traits to their children, styled HTML elements pass down certain style properties to the elements they contain. Okay, notice in exercise 11.1, when we style the P elements in a small sans serif font, the EM element in the second paragraph became small and sans serif as well, even though we didn't write a rule for it specifically. Okay. That is because it inherited the styles from the paragraph it is in. We unstyled, and then the emphasized text element is small and sans serif even though it has no style of its own. It inherits the style in the paragraph it contains. Document structure. This is where an understanding of your document structure becomes important. As I've noted before, HTML documents have an implicit structure or hierarchy. For example, the sample article we've been playing with has an HTML root element that contains a head and body, and the body contains heading and paragraph elements. A few paragraphs in turn contains inline elements such as image and emphasized text. You can visualize the structure here. Okay. Essentially originating from the root. Parents and children. The document tree becomes a family tree when it comes to referring to the relationship between elements. All the elements contained within a given element are said to be its descendants. For example, H1 and H2, PEM, and image element in the document are all descendants of the body element. An element that is directly contained within another element with no intervening hierarchical levels is said to be the child of that element. Conversely, the containing element is the parent. For example, the EM is a child of the P parent here, and P is its parent. All the elements higher than a particular element in a hierarchy are its ancestors. Two elements with the same parent are siblings. We don't refer to ones. Okay, the analogy stops there. This may all seem academic, but it will come in handy when writing CSS selectives. Pass it on. When you write a font related style rule using the P element as a selector, the rule applies to all the paragraph in the document as well as inline text element they contain. We've seen the evidence of EM element inheriting the style properties applied to its parent P demonstrates what's happening in terms of the document structure diagram. Note that image element is excluded because font related properties do not apply to images. CSS step. When you learn a new property, it is a good idea to note whether it inherits. Inheritance is noted for every property listing in this book. For the most part, inheritance follows your expectations. Okay. Warning, the browser style sheet may override styles set on the body. So be on the lookout for unexpected styling. Notice that I've been saying certain properties aren't inherited. It's important to note that some style sheet properties inherit and others do not. In general, properties related to styling of text, font size, color pass down. Properties such as border, margin, backgrounds, and so on that affect the boxed area around the element tend to not be passed down. This makes sense when you think about it. For example, if you put a border around a paragraph, you wouldn't want a border around every inline element it contains. Right. You can use inheritance to your advantage when writing style sheets. For example, if you want all text element to be rendered in the Vedana font face, you could write separate style sheets for every element in the document and set font face to Vedana. For example, if you want text element, a better way would be to write a single style rule that applies the font face property to the body and let all text element contained in the body inherit the style. Right. Any property applied to a specific element will override the inherited values for that property. Going back to the article, we could specify that EM element should appear in serif font, and that would override the inherited sans serif setting. Okay. If you apply font related property to the body element, it will be passed down to all the text elements in the document. Note the font property do not apply to image. Right. Oh, yeah. Conflicting styles. The cascade. Ever wonder why they are called cascading style sheets? CSS allows you to apply several style sheets to the same document, which means there are bound to be conflict. For example, what should the browser do if a document improved imported style sheet says H1 element should be red, but its embedded style sheet has a rule that makes H1 purple? Okay. The folks who wrote the style sheet specification anticipated this problem and devised a hierarchical system that assigns different weights to the various sources of style formation. The cascade refers to what happens when several sources of style information vie for control of the elements on a page. Style information is passed down, cascades down until it is overridden by style command with more weight. Okay. For example, if you don't apply any style information to a web page, it will be rendered according to the browser's internal style sheet, user agent style sheet. Individual user can apply their own style sheet as well, which overrides the default styles in the browser. However, if author of the web page has attached a style sheet, that overrides both user and user agent. The only exception is if the user has identified a style as important, in which case the style will trump the assigning, trump all. Assigning importance. The style sheet source is one hierarchy that determines which style wins. As we have learned, there are three ways to attach style information to the source document, and they have a cascading order as well. Generally speaking, the closer the style sheet is to the content, the more weight it is given. Embedded style sheets that appear right in the document in the style element have more weight than external style sheet. In the example, it is right, generally speaking, in the purple, uh, not red, and the external style sheet has less weight. Inline have more weight than embedded style sheet because you can't get any closer to the content than a style right in the opening tab. Right. To prevent a specific rule from being overridden, you can assign it importance with a dash important indicator. The sidebar style sheet hierarchy provides an overview of cascading order in general specific. When two rules in a single statute conflict, the order of selector is used to determine the whether. Okay, so it is good for today.